The Genesis G70 gets a more powerful base engine for 2024, along with a few other nice enhancements as well. And in this video, I'm going to cover the exterior, the interior, talk about how it drives, and also talk about the fuel economy you can expect and the pricing and how it compares to the competition these days. But as far as the 2024 G70, on the outside, nothing has changed. But that's okay, because to me, it was just beautiful whenever they did this new restyle in 2022 and freshened up the front end and the back end. And I still think that it is aging very nicely a couple years later here. But I really love these beautiful wheels too, with some intricate details on them there. Out back, you know, you have the nice oval exhaust tips, and overall, I still think these just look really, really good. But the big news is under the hood, where these now get 300 horsepower, about 50 more horsepower than before, and that should be a really nice performance boost here for the base version and make it a more compelling option compared to the more powerful twin turbo V6 that's still available. So we'll definitely be checking that out in this video, but first let's hop on the inside and see the little changes there. The interior of the 2024 G70 is mostly the same, but there are a couple of big changes. The main one here is that you have this new screen for the climate controls here that replaces some of the physical buttons, although you still have some actual knobs here to adjust the climate, as well as a few buttons. And, you know, overall works pretty nicely. There's haptic feedback whenever you press on the screen as well, so you know that you're actually doing something there. And overall, I think it's, you know, totally fine change, although I know a few people would probably rather have regular buttons, but I think this is a totally fine, nice way to update this interior. And so I think it's a nice change. The other change, though, are these new seats. They say they're more comfortable, and I'd have to sit in the old seats to directly compare, but to me, it seems like these seats are a little less sporty than the old seats. So I guess, yes, they are more comfortable, but to me, these don't hug me quite as well. But I may also be used to the 3.3 seats with their adjustable bolstering. This just has wider bolsters, but I love the red stitching here on them. They're really great. The only other minor change, there's a larger dead pedal, they say now, which is interesting. And otherwise, you know, this interior is still totally fine, still really nice. You still have this 10.3 inch touchscreen. The only unfortunate thing about it is it doesn't have wireless Apple CarPlay or wireless Android Auto still, and a couple of the other competitors, you know, do have that. Most of them do these days. So that's the only deficiency here up front that I can really see. But otherwise, you know, really nice interior, great steering wheel. The gauge is still a partially digital, partially analog thing, but I think they look totally fine. And overall, just a very, you know, premium interior with the metal trim and all the leather. And, you know, I mean, you still have some cheap touches, like these volume and tuning knobs look like metal, but are clearly plastic and don't really match these lower climate control knobs, which is kind of interesting. You know, so this isn't going to be the highest quality interior from a luxury standpoint, but you're getting this at a significant discount over those more expensive competitors. And so it's one of those things where you get what you pay for a little bit as far as the interior here, but still a totally fine interior if you're not really nitpicky about that stuff. The only other two little things I'll say where the G70 comes up a little short is in backseat space and in trunk space. Backseat space is a little snug, although with the way the seat is cut out there in the back, it does maximize the space. And so I'm 5'9", and me sitting behind myself, I still have, you know, a couple inches of legroom to spare. It's still totally doable. It's just not going to be quite as spacious of a backseat as, you know, most of the other competitors, but not a big deal in my opinion, unless you're really transporting large people on a regular basis. But just one thing to be aware of. There's also, you know, a slightly smaller trunk. That also will come down to just how much you stuff your trunk all the time. But, you know, it's going to be a little less space than I'd say a comparable 3 Series in vehicles like that. But shouldn't be a big deal, you know, I think, for the average buyer. And so overall, I still think this interior is super nice. And again, just gives you so much, you know, cooled seats here we have in this. Heated steering wheel, wireless charging pad, you know, all those modern, you know, nice luxury features you're looking for. It has it. And so overall, I still think it's a really nice interior. But let's start up and go for a drive. Another cool thing is the Genesis, I believe, gets a new key this year. This key is relatively new, and it's a really cool key. I love that it's white, and you have a little bit of metal trim here on the sides, and just a really attractive key. Not too big, and just, yeah, I really like it. And so, of course, it is keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off here in the G70. So the first things you notice, I mean, everything's the same as it has been for a while here. You know, you have a great front view here, good visibility, pretty thin A-pillars, view out of the back is pretty good. All that is nice and easy. I also love, you know, the throttle response, the brakes. It's all exactly the way you want it to be. You have a torque converter, automatic, no weird dual clutch or anything going on here. And so whenever you put your foot down, it just immediately gives you nice linear power and gives you the power exactly the way you're expecting it to come on. Brakes also have, you know, a good amount of bite right towards the top of the pedal. There's a little bit of a dead travel there just so that it's easy to be smooth with the brakes, but really well done. And this whole vehicle has just been a really nice thing to live with. I've already driven it for about a week here, and it's just been a nice thing to just go about my business, run errands, and do it all in style and with a good amount of performance as well. But it's just, you know, so comfortable and just is a really nice ride. Now, one thing I will note is that you don't have adaptive dampers here in the 2.5T version, and that is something you do get with the 3.3T and a lot of the other competitors, even without going for their sportier, bigger engine versions, can give you adaptive dampers. That is one key difference, is you can't get those here in this. But honestly, to me, it's still been kind of fine. I mean, again, it's not too stiff, it's not too soft. It's really just like a well set up default, and I don't think there's really much need to tweak things, to be completely honest. So I'm not feeling any desire for adaptive dampers here, and, you know, going over bumps and stuff, it's totally fine and feels very appropriate for Genesis. But I'm gonna go ahead and put it up into the Sport Plus mode, which also turns off traction control as well. And we do have all-wheel drive, but let's turn down onto this back road here and see how it does. Here we go. There we go. It pulls really nicely. It is a strong amount of power, and you know, I tried out this powertrain combo in the Stinger whenever it had this 2.5T for its last model year, and it's a really, really strong engine. Now, I don't think it feels quite as savage as you might be expecting for 300 horsepower, to be totally honest. But it's definitely strong for sure. It's a very smooth engine. It doesn't have a ton of excitement to it. It's not really peaky or anything. It almost feels like a naturally aspirated engine, to be totally honest. You know, so that'll come down to your personal preference as far as whether you like that or not. But I mean, personally, it's really fun. I just don't think it has a ton of drama to it. I think the 3.3T motor certainly is a little more exciting. But anyway, as far as the specs here, the 2.5T has 300 horsepower, 311 pound-feet of torque, and 0 to 60 is going to be about 5.7 seconds according to Motor Trend, and that's, you know, a good amount of punch. But it is worth noting that even some of the competitors with less horsepower do quicker 0 to 60 times. I think partially thanks to their quicker transmissions. The Alfa Romeo Giulia, BMW 330i, things like that, run ZF 8-speed automatics, and therefore have snappier shifts and, you know, maybe some quicker gearing as well. That helps those to really, you know, be very, very impressive in a straight line and maximize the amount of power that they have to work with. But I mean, still going to be plenty of punch, totally fine. One thing that does help the 3.3Ts to be a little more exciting is the fact that they have an active exhaust. You don't get that here on the 2.5T, unfortunately. So, you know, that I think probably is a little bit of what I'm missing here, but still feels really good. And yeah, all-wheel drive is on this one. It's about a $2,225 option, I believe, but you can't get rear-wheel drive with these as well. But coming up some corners here I always take. Let's see how this handles. So it's nice and flat. It feels really dynamic, and yeah, this thing has always been so impressive to me. It's got a nice shorter wheelbase, which always helped it to feel really agile, and it's just, yeah, you know, able to slice and dice really well. One interesting component with this one is that we have 225 wide tires in the front, 255 in the rear, but they're only Michelin Primacy all-season tires on this one here. You know, previously you get Michelin Pilot Sport 4S, and this is the Sport Prestige trim, but surprisingly you don't get any sporty tires on these anymore. And so that means you're going to have a little less grip, but it makes these a little more playful as far as the handling goes. You know, lower grip can be a lot of fun if, you know, you're careful and you know what you're doing, but if you want the most grip possible, you're going to want to do a tire upgrade on these, or again, go for the 3.3T, which I believe still does come with the Michelin Pilot Sport 4 tires on those. And yeah, so I mean, I just love it. I mean, the steering is nice and quick, and handling is really pretty top notch. I still don't think it beats the Alfa Romeo Giulia in my mind. That is still, I think, the king as far as the non-full-blown performance sports sedans goes. But this isn't far off, and, you know, it'll come down to the deal you get and stuff, but this is, as far as MSRP goes, priced less than the Giulia by a significant bit, about $5,000 or so. So if you really want the best handling, I still think Giulia is the way to go. But otherwise, I think this is really top notch. I haven't driven all of the competitors, but from the ones I've driven, I think this certainly feels a little more lively with its handling compared to the Lexus IS350 F Sport, Infiniti Q50, and then if you go to all the German competitors, I think 330 is a little more stable with a little bit of a longer wheelbase and gives you a little more confidence in that. I haven't driven a regular A4 or the new C300 to compare those, but to me, And I'll get into this a little bit later with the pricing, but I think for the money, this is one of the best handling ones out there, and I think is something that, even if it's not the best in all the ways, is good enough that it makes its case very strong, and I think is a very compelling choice. And it's a ton of fun on a back road, so yeah, no complaints there. And as we're just cruising on our main road here now, still totally fine and comfortable, and makes a really great daily driver as well. And for anyone who's curious, curb weight for these with rear-wheel drive are 3,745 pounds. You can probably add on another 100 or 150 or so here for the all-wheel drive system, I'm guessing, but still should be totally fine from a curb weight standpoint, and be definitely under 4,000 pounds. And now we're out on the highway here in the G70, and it's a really nice highway cruiser too. One great thing is, you have adaptive cruise control as standard. All the driver assistance stuff is really comprehensive here with the Genesis. And so as we're going around a gentle corner, I have the highway drive assist system on, which does even the steering assist, and we have a truck right here, so I'm going to be a little extra cautious, but it's doing a pretty good job. I've had pretty good luck very recently with these systems from Hyundai and Kia and Genesis, where they seem to be a little more reliable than they used to be. I don't know if they updated the software or what, but so far, at least with my luck this week, it's been holding road lines, it's been pretty consistent with its help, and it's been a really good system. As far as the sound deadening goes out here on the highway as well, it's totally fine. Pretty quiet. You hear a tiny bit of wind noise, but other than that, it's really good. The only thing it did say, keep your hands on the wheel, and my hand clearly was on the wheel, so maybe not the smartest with sensing that, but otherwise, it's a really nice highway cruiser here. And with this 8-speed too, we're doing 60 miles per hour, and we're turning 1,500 RPM, so it's really nice and hushed for the engine and everything. One other little observation though about the safety tech that I did notice this week is that I got a few false warnings for the parking sensors, where I would just be stopped at a red light or something, nothing else is moving, there's no changes, and it's just like, oh wait, beep 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 beep, there's something there, and then beep beep beep, oh there's something over there. So I don't know if it's just this car, or if they just have overly sensitive parking sensors on these things or what. I mean, there's a button here, you can turn it off if it does it a bunch, and just turn on the parking sensors when you actually need them. But just one little glitch here in this one that I just felt was a little out of the ordinary. But then the last couple things I mentioned here though are the fuel economy, and then the pricing and how it compares to the competition. So as far as fuel economy goes, these are rated at 20 mpg in the city, 28 on the highway, and 23 combined. And for references, 2 mpg lower on the highway compared to the 2.0T motor. I guess the extra half liter of displacement there, is going to be a little thirstier on your highway drive, but that's, not the end of the world, and you might still be able to overperform those numbers. And I think, and I personally am already overperforming, because I've been driving this vehicle almost 100 miles here, and in my driving, I've been getting 24.4 mpg, and I would say that my driving was a pretty good 50-50 split of city and highway. I did a decent amount of highway driving here, which certainly helped that average out, but I mean, I'm doing better than, the typical fuel economy here that I was expecting. I typically get 1 to 2 mpg less than the city rating, and again, I did a little more highway here, but I'm still pleasantly surprised with my fuel economy, so I think this could potentially overperform, so I'm just pretty happy with the fuel economy I'm getting here. And then the last thing to mention though is the pricing and how it compares to those competitors. But so this one, these 2.5T versions start at around $43,000. This one, as tested, is just under $50,000, and I think that's a really strong value no matter how you look at it, because first off, if you want the 3.3T version, which again gives you the active exhaust, the sportier seats, the adaptive dampers, things like that, there are a lot of other things aside from just the engine, but those are still about $9,000 more expensive, and you get 65 more horsepower or so, but it's not as big of a gap as the over 100 horsepower difference you had with the 2.0T version, because again, this is just such a huge 48 more horsepower, 51 more pound-feet of torque here for the 2.5T version. It's just a really nice bump that makes you really question, do you need to get the twin turbo V6, which is also going to be thirstier as well. So I think that this is a really strong value these days, and it even gets even stronger for its value whenever you compare it to the other competitors out there. So everything else, pretty much, I mean, if you don't care about the rear-wheel drive based platform, you can get a TLX that's comparably equipped for about $52,500. I believe you can also get a Q50 for like $52,500. So, but even those, I mean, we're still talking a couple grand more than this. this, and arguably maybe not quite as sporty as this, although the Q50 does match this on horsepower with about 300 horsepower as well. But the Acura, you're down like 30 horsepower almost. So I don't know, I feel like this is a pretty strong value. And then when you look at the other competitors, like my favorite handling one, the Giulia, those are 55 comparably equipped. Now again, maybe you'll get a bigger discount on one versus the other and your value proposition will change. But as far as MSRPs go, which is how I have to compare these vehicles, they're all more expensive than this. And another one that now with this being around 300 horsepower, a more direct competitor is the Lexus IS 350 F Sport. And that gives you a naturally aspirated V6, so very much more old school kind of setup. But the IS is a great car too. I've really enjoyed the time I've spent in those as well. But even those those are like $54,000 too. So there's really no other bargain here. Everything is clearly well into the 50s. And then when you bring in the German competitors, I think the cheapest one is like the A4, which also comes in around 54. But then you look at the BMW comparably equipped, that's going to be in the high 50s. Mercedes, if you really are going crazy, with all the same options you just get here in this, and maybe one or two other extra things, but it's like 65 grand. So this is just undercutting everybody, whether it's by 15 grand or 5 grand. This is going to be the best value. But I don't think that this has to be just the logical penny pincher choice. I think that it's also like really good, and I think that even if they were all the same price, I would probably rather have this over most of the competitors. Even though I love the Giulia's handling, the infotainment system in the Giulia isn't quite as good. There's give and take with a bunch of them. I could spend a half an hour comparing everything in this segment, but it's just, I think this is a happy medium of giving you enough luxury, giving you all the main features that you're looking for, that you want, and giving them to you for a nice low price tag, while still giving you, again, great performance, numbers that beat many of the other competitors. And just doing it all, by the way, with a 10-year 100,000 mile warranty, which none of the other competitors will offer you. Now obviously some of the other stuff like the Lexus has legendary reliability. Even if you don't have the warranty coverage there, the Lexus may end up being the pick if you want something that you're going to keep for a very long time. But as far as just warranty coverage, Genesis is the only one that puts their money where their mouth is and says, look, this is going to be reliable for at least 10 years and 100,000 miles. So that's the powertrain warranty. Obviously there's other components, but I really like the fact that they put that support out there. And so again, it'll come down to your deal, what kind of negotiations you can do on all of these as far as which one is going to be the best deal and the best value for you and your personal preferences and what you're looking for specifically. But overall, I really think that the G70 is one of my favorite picks still in this segment. And if you don't have to have a brand new one, I also have to say, just very briefly, the G70 is a phenomenal value on the used market. They do depreciate, so be warned of that even if you buy it new, but you can get a phenomenal deal on one of these things used, not the 2.5T obviously since that just came out, but if you're okay with the 2.0 or even a used 3.3T can be had for very reasonable money. A huge savings there as well if you don't need to have a brand new model year vehicle here. But yeah, overall really love the G70, always have, always will. I think it's just really well done, and happy to see they continue to support it, continue to build it, even though Stinger has gone away. I'm glad the G70 has continued on. We will see how much longer this lasts, but while it's here, enjoy it, and definitely I think it's worth considering because it's just a phenomenal little car here. Anyway, that's all of my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on the G70 in the comments below. Huge thanks to Genesis for providing me here with this vehicle to review for you guys today. Yeah, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.